Hey guys, what's going on? It's Sync here again with my day 3 of the 300 subscribers week. Today we have another tutorial for you, which in this case is going to be 3D motion tracking, which is a problem which I've found that a lot of people have had problems with. So I'm figuring that if I make a public tutorial for it, everybody will know how to do it and how I do it, which provides you with a nearly flawless track. In some cases, depending on the cinematic or what you're trying to track, it might have some wiggle. Okay, so the first thing that I've done is I put my cinematic into a new composition, which I've just done by creating a new composition and copying it in. And what I've also done to make the cinematic look a little bit better is I've keyframed the rotation from the start to the end, from -3 to +3, which adds the idea of the camera actually tilting to the side while the cinematic goes on. This just adds a really nice angle to your cinematics and makes it look much more professional and much nicer for the eyes, since it's a very interesting look. However, this also created black bars or black corners, so what I had to do was change the scale of the video layer to 109%. This differs on the amount of rotation that you use. Okay, so now once we have all that done, so we've got a nice looking cinematic, we've got it all done like that, we are going to want to render the cinematic as JPEG files. So what you're going to do is press Control M, or go to Composition and add to render queue. Click on Output Module and change it to JPEG sequence. What this is going to do is render every single frame in the cinematic as a single JPEG file, which you can then use in Buju to track. Then you're going to output it to, I'm just going to delete all of these. Hold on, sorry about this. Okay, I'm just going to make a new one. Tutorial 2. You're going to choose where to save it. I highly recommend putting it into a new folder, since, as I said, it will render every single frame as a JPEG file, and you do not want to render this to your desktop, since it will completely clutter it up with absolutely useless files. So just make a new folder in which to export it, and then if you want to, you can change your file name. It makes no real difference. Click Save, and then click on Render. So in this tutorial, we're going to be using Buju to track. I'm sorry if you don't have Buju. It's quite simple to get, actually, so you should easily be able to find it online. I use Buju because I find its tracks to be much more accurate than the After Effects tracker, and I can use it for tracks such as gun tracks, where I want to track a HUD or a heads-up display to the gun, and that creates problems in After Effects, whereas in Buju it handles it perfectly nicely. Okay, so here in Buju, what we're going to do is import our JPEG sequence, choose where we saved it, so Tutorial 2, and then double click on the first file. What this will do is, with the naming of 00001, 00002, 00003, it will recognize that this is a sequence and place it as an almost video file. Okay, so then you're going to change your frame rate to 59.94, click Apply, and for Buju 5, after you click Apply, it often changes your frame rate back to 25, so change it back to 59.94, click Apply, then Close. So now we have our cinematic here in Buju, and what we want to do is track it, so we click on Track Features, All Frames, Start. It should be a pretty quick track, so I'm not going to pause the recording. So what Buju does is it analyzes the difference in position of a point with changing hue, changing hue, darkness, a level, or saturation, and it uses that as well as all the pixels that have been tracked around it to construct a 3D scene which shows the Z, your Z depth, your X and your Y axes to give you a accurate track of the 3D scene. So once you have clicked on track, finished your track features, you'll have all these red addition signs as well as yellow trails behind them. What you're going to do is want to solve the camera, which will delete all of the tracks that aren't very accurate and disappear after a little while. This is very essential since it does that and allows you to choose only the best points that there are in the track. Okay, so we're almost done here. Yeah, okay. So now you see once you've camera solved, you have all these blue and yellow points, which are all in different, look perfectly tracked to the scene. Now, one thing I'm going to do just to make my life a lot easier when I go back into After Effects is to tell the program what the axes are, because right now it doesn't know exactly what it's looking at and where the axes are. So I'm just going to go into my scene geometry and scrub forwards a little bit and choose add coordinate from hint, change it to the x-axis, and choose 2 points in the sequence that seem to be on the x-axis, so the axis going from the left to the right. Then clicking connect to selected, clicking add coordinate from hint again, choosing my y-axis and finding the same thing but up and down, connect to selected. And for this, I don't need to add the Z position for the sake of this tutorial since it's quite a simple track, so I'm just going to add another coordinate from hint and make it my origin and choose where I want my text to be, which I want to be on the door. Okay. Connect to selected, update coordinate frame, just click that a few times, and then click close. So what we've now done is told the program exactly what our 3D scene is. As you can see here, these few points are a door, we have our wall there, our tree here, and our background scene here, as well as quite a few very far away points. So now the program knows exactly what our 3D scene is, and it has created a camera which moves through this, which emulates this movement through the scene, which it has analyzed from the tracks. So this camera then can be exported into After Effects, where any 3D layer will react with it, and if you position your things right, it will make it look like it's 3D tracked. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find some points that we like, some track points that we like. For instance, I'm just going to choose these two, right click on them and click flag for export, then click on export camera, tick export flag tracks only, which will make it so you've only export the null objects that you've just flagged rather than every single null object in the scene, which are these blue and yellow dots. Then change your scale scene by to 1000, choosing where to save it, so I'm just going to save it in tutorial track. So now we've got that, we just click on save, and that's going to create an After Effects Maya file, which will tell the program to create a composition with these null objects and the camera. So we're just going to open that up here, go to our tutorial, and then just drag that straight into After Effects. Now what you've seen is that it has created a new composition here, which we're just going to open, and you can't see anything at the moment except for these two null objects that come in right at the end. So we're just going to copy and paste our cinematic. Make sure if this happens where you still don't see anything, It might be that your camera view has been set to a different thing. You want to change it to, here, this camera view, you want to change it to active camera. There we go. And now you'll see the track with our two null objects there. So what I'm going to do is, now that I have the null objects, I want to track some text to this position. So I'm just going to go make some text, for instance, sync, and I'm just going to scale that up a little bit so I can see it better. Then I'm going to, right now at the moment it does not react with the camera at all, so I need to make it a 3D object so it is registered by the camera as a 3D object that it then interacts with. So I'm just going to click on this box icon, wherein my text is going to completely disappear. This is because the Z position and just the general position of the text has been changed completely, which is now down here. To fix this, don't try to move it up. Rather than that, find the null object that you exported before, click P to find its position, and then click on the position, press Ctrl C, and Ctrl V it on the text layer. What I have done here is I have actually copied the position of the null object to my text. And this is especially important since it copies the Z position of the null object, which is what determines exactly how the text moves in the scene. Now, because I have set up my scene geometry, I'm just going to reposition this with the Y position a little bit, and the X and the Y position. Because of that, the text is already perfect in terms of rotation. If it is not already perfect, you can click on the text, press R, and then play with the different rotations. Just a warning, this rotates it in the axes, not in the same way that you think, where X rotation will rotate it horizontally. So it rotates it towards you. It rotates the left or right towards you. No, it rotates it in the axes. So the X rotation would actually rotate it towards or away from you. What if in case you want that left or right part of the text to be towards you? That is your Y position, since the Y axis here is what the text rotates around. So now we have that all there. We can see that's quite well tracked. What I'm just going to do is change my Z position to about 3%, since it looks to be a little out of line. So now that looks more like it. We have, actually I'm going to change it to 2. So now it looks like we have a sort of parallel lines things here, and it looks well tracked. If you wanted to add sync and then present, you can duplicate your layer, your text layer. Use your text tool, which is also Control T, and then right in, change it to presents. So I'm just going to move that down by either going down here and changing the Y position, or you can do it here with these axes, but you're going to have to use the selection tool for that. And I'm just going to scale that down a little bit, since as you see here, it both clashes with the door and the wall, which makes no sense in the context of our scene, since it's meant to be behind the wall and in front of the door. So it's going to scale it down a little bit and put it under, reposition it. So now we have here our 2D tracked text that says, whatever we want it to. We can change it to whatever we want it to. We can change anything we want about the text. As long as you don't make it a 2D layer again by turning off this layer, it will be perfectly tracked with the camera. So what I'm now going to do is show you how to track other things such as pictures. So I'm just going to go in here, go to my editing, overlays, and say I wanted to track the IS logo. So I'm just going to copy that file in. Just going to hide these, or actually no, I'm going to keep them there. Drag that into our composition, and the same with the text. make it a 3D layer, then copy the position and fix our scale accordingly, as well as a little bit of position. Now if I wanted this to be behind my text, I just put the layer underneath, and you can see there. So now we have also motion tracked a JPEG file or any sort of image file, and that's also perfectly tracked. And you can do, to show you what I usually do with my 2D animations, I usually track those as well. And you can literally track any sort of layer you want, a video, a text, solid, PNG or JPEG, all works perfectly. So I'm just going to drag in what I created, this 2D animation, and I'm just going to drag that in, make that a 3D layer as well, copy the position, and then I'm just going to move that over, since in the starting bit you can't even see the animation. And I'm just going to affect the scale according to what I need to. So, okay, that looks pretty good. So now you can see how I track my 2D animations, where now our animation is perfectly tracked into the scene, adding that extra depth of tracking as well as the motion graphics. So if we just round preview that, we should see that it looks nice and smooth, as well as that it's perfectly tracked, and that our animation moves as normal. And in the case where you have, you drag in your composition and you see that there's black in the background, you can simply set the mode, the blending mode of the layer to add, or make sure that you have nothing behind your objects in the composition which you've just imported. Just going to wait for this to finish RAM previewing. Come on. Only 33, well, about 20 frames left. Okay. So now there you can see the track is actually, it's absolutely perfect. I see absolutely no shakiness, and it looks great with the animation. So yes, this is how you track your text with Buju and After Effects. Yeah, that's to do with any sort of 2D text, any layer that you want to track. And that's it from me, guys. See you tomorrow.